Hello, welcome to another episode of Profiles in Character, as I've titled it, where I spotlight individuals who inspire and intrigue. So today, Mark Steil is my guest.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mark. So regularly, leaders of your organization ask leading loan officers, loan people like Mark, to share tips and techniques, approaches that might be beneficial to their peers. And it was one such speech that regarding his keys to his success had piqued my interest when I heard about it. And after a lunch that Mark and I had recently, where he shared his thoughts from that talk, I felt compelled to delve deeper and asked him to come be part of this and have a conversation that we can share with others. So allow me to introduce Mark. And Mark's journey in the mortgage industry spans over 2 decades. I'll give you a brief bio here, demonstrating a trajectory of hard work, determination, and consistent success. As a mortgage loan originator for U.S. Bank, Mark's accomplishments speak volumes. And I'll just list a few here. I don't want to I'm bragging on you here a bit.
Don't make me blush this early.
So you've been in the industry 23 years. Yep. You embarked on your career as a mortgage broker and subsequently added the names of Wells Fargo and Countrywide Mortgage, which is no longer. For the past 15 years, you've been with U.S. Bank.
Correct. Yep.
And you've had consistent recognition at U.S. Bank. You've been honored with U.S. Bank's President's Circle Legends of Possible Award for an incredible 13 consecutive years.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Placing
him in the top 2% of loan officers at U.S. Bank. Is that nationwide?
Yep, nationwide.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So your astonishing volume of loans that you've closed over the past 5 years alone has surpassed $600 million, which is just breathtaking.
Pretty crazy when you say it out loud.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. Yes, a lot of closings. So you've been active. And you have statewide recognition. So in 2022, you were recognized as one of the top 10 loan officers in loan volume in the state of Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm guessing that your talk, what do we call it, a talk or a speech or a message that you were asked to give was to a state organization, or what was that?
This was actually our region of loan officers and kind of our sales leaders from across the country. So there's probably about 125 people who were there. Okay. So a lot of fellow loan officers. And it was the first time we had gotten together as a region since before COVID. So we had people from North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, loan officers all getting together for our one big get-together, first time in 3 years. So.
And you were the guy.
I was the guy. They thought I might have something to say. So.
Yes. Incidentally, so U.S. Bank, its position in the mortgage field, where does it line up? Who are the big players?
Well,
where do they rank?
I would say nationally, like U.S. Bank is a top 5 lender in volume nationally.
Okay.
Actually, I think first and second quarter this year, we were actually the biggest bank. So as far as mortgage volume goes, so more than Wells Fargo, more than Chase. So that is different than it's been in previous years. So a lot of the big banks have actually pulled back a little bit what they want to do in mortgage right now. But U.S. Bank continues to charge ahead. So we are the largest bank lender in the country, and I think number 5 overall.
Interesting. So I hear distinction of bank lender versus
mortgage brokers.
Mortgage broker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And some of those players would be.
I'm trying to think who. I'll be honest. I don't even know the names off the top of my head.
Okay.
Given that it's just different than my normal world.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Understood. Wow, that's big time. It's lots of money going on.
Yeah.
So, first of all, let's back up. Let's learn a little bit more about you personally. So, where did you grow up? Tell us about your schooling, your family, etc. Anything you want to add regarding those things?
Sounds good. Yeah, I grew up in Golden Valley, so across the lake from Medicine Lake and off 169. So, grew up there. Went to Hopkins High School. met my wife at Hopkins High School. We started dating as seniors. At the time, though, I had the mullet and heavy metal T-shirts and flannel shirts.
Wait,
grunge
what?
era. Yeah, the mullet, and it was a power mullet. It wasn't a normal.
I need to see a picture of that.
Not hockey hair. This was Michael Bolton
Oh,
mullet.
yeah.
So, and my wife, she thought it was. She even fell in love with me looking like
Wow.
that. So, but we both went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, and and then we got married right after we graduated, and we've got 2 kids, and my youngest is a freshman at Wheaton College, just dropped her off, and my son is a sophomore at Texas A&M and just dropped him off. So we are officially empty nesters for 1 week for the first time. So
1 week.
Yep, we dropped them off last Monday. It was the lab. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have a ball.
I think it's going to be fun. It's definitely different,
Yep.
but it's going to be fun. They seem like they're transitioning well, and that seems to affect how we feel about it, how we feel about it all as parents as well. So
That's awesome. I do want to come back to work-life balance in a little bit regarding your family and so forth. But what I'm very curious about, and I want to share with those who are watching, is this speech or talk you gave was just really intriguing to me, and I want to sort of unpack that a little bit. So I saw the title of your speech. You gave it. I don't think you shared it, but you called it, let me see if I get this right.
I thought it, yeah.
Reflections from an Old Guy.
That was just a working title.
So your boss, your manager, or whoever it was who asked you to do this, asked you to provide some insights on how to be successful, and that's the title you gave it. So
yes.
What inspired that title?
Well, it's funny how, I mean, I'm not an old guy, but I've been doing this 23 years, and as you go through the cycle of life with kids and marriage, and you just feel like you've learned a lot, and obviously there's so much more to learn. But when somebody's just asking me for my thoughts and reflections, sometimes I feel like an old guy, because I feel like I have probably what would be considered old school views on some things, not new age and not cutting edge in any way. And sometimes when I tell people, I just think they look at me like, wow, you're like an old guy. But that was just kind of the thoughts.
But you're not.
But I'm not. I'm 48. I'm definitely not an old guy.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like it, because I feel like my approach is very traditional, and I think that's almost counter to how things are done now. So.
Yeah, so as we'll get into here, your advice, so to speak, is quite simple.
Yes.
But that's the beauty of it. It's simplicity, and how you execute on that simplicity, I think, is what you would say. But I'll let you say that. But,
right.
But let me just say, so what I pulled out, you identified 3 things that you believe help your business and that could help others in their business. And you go through, and I'll list them, and then you can expand on them.
Yep.
You say, I don't believe in doing your best, as one item, and you need to become brilliant in the basics.
Yep.
And then third, be thankful for your opportunities and focus on serving others.
Yes. So
those are interesting and powerful at the same time. So let me start out by asking. You emphasize the importance of doing your best to do what it takes. Mm-hmm. So share a specific example. Well, actually, define that a little bit more with some color, and then maybe give some examples of what that might look like.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely needs some color, because when you tell somebody don't do your best, it sounds like horrible advice.
Right. Yes. On its surface, yes.
But here's kind of where it came from was, I can't tell you the number of times in my career where I've asked somebody, can you do this for me? And they would respond with, I'll do my best. And I'll be like, so is that yes or is that no? And it's basically, they're not committing to anything. It's kind of like, I'll try, and if it doesn't work out, don't get mad at me, because I'm doing my best. And that, to me, just always rang hollow, like, that's not really an answer. That's kind of a cop-out, in my opinion. And so it became a pet peeve of mine when people would say, when I would ask a question if they would do something for me, and they say, I'll do my best. And that, to me, was just the wrong mindset, because people's are defining their best is kind of based on what my abilities are right now, or however I am mentally right now, or however strong I feel right now. It's not really your best. I think people, in a lot of instances, people limit what they think their best is. And so if somebody was truly doing their best, okay, yes, then do your best. But we don't do our best. Like, people just, again, that catchphrase really just rubbed me the wrong way over the years. And so when I was working with certain people and that was their answer, I kind of classified them as I can't count on them, because that's their answer and they often wouldn't come through. To me, a different mindset is not doing my best, but doing what it takes. And to me, that's just different. It's, I'm gonna get this done, whatever it takes. So if we're talking a real estate transaction and you'd say, well, Mark, I want to close in 17 days. And I would tell you, I'll do my best. How would that make you feel?
A little uneasy.
It wouldn't give you a lot of confidence,
That's
right? But it's, we're going to get this done. And so if I'm working with the customer and we've got a 17-day closing, like, this is, the timing is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we can get this done. This is what I'm going to need from you, and we're going to do this and this and this, and we will get it done. And so in my mind, this is the goal date, and then it's up to me to figure out what are we going to do to get it done, and we're going to do whatever it takes. I mean, and so it's just a different mindset. It's just, you're not using a cop-out of I'll try, basically. It's, your mindset is, always, I'm going to do what it takes. I don't know if I was influenced by Yoda, who was, do or do not, there is no try. It's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
And I'll give my father credit, because I remember as I would do a few tasks and I'd say, this is good enough. And he'd be like, what do you mean good enough? It's not done yet. And so that also got into my mind is, your job's not done until your job is done. And that's just how my brain worked. It was just simply, my outlook is, here's the task, what are we going to do to get it done? And identify the challenges up front. How are we going to overcome those challenges? Make a plan, execute. Do it over and over and over. And you look pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then everybody knows, I can count on you. It's like there's not even a question. It's just, give it to him, he will get it done.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, naturally there's a realm of possibility to get something done.
Correct.
It's not someone coming to you and saying, I want to close next week.
Right.
That's an impossible thing.
Correct.
Well, I don't want to say impossible, but nearly impossible. So I think doing your best, or saying I'll do what it takes, has to fall within that window of the realm of possibility.
Without a doubt. So if you tell me you want to close in 7 days and appraisals are taking 10, it's not possible.
That's right. Yeah.
So you also need to be realistic about what is possible and communicate about that up front as well. So one of my early mentors, she would say yes to everything. So you always say you learn a lot from working with other people, some positive, some negative. So she would say yes to everything, and everything wasn't possible. Or to do it, it came at the expense of relationships of your partners who are doing the work. And so to me, that's still not possible. But the answer with her was always yes. And that's not sustainable long term. So you also have to be realistic about what's possible. Yep. And also, I'm not afraid, and she also wouldn't want to burden the clients with certain things. But I'm I think providing good service is being open and honest about, here's what our challenges are going to be. And we can overcome this. This is what I'm going to need from you. This is what I'm going to do. And we're going to work together. That's more of my approach is let's be very upfront and honest about what our challenges are going to be, how we're going to approach them, and let's attack this thing.
So it's not necessarily that you're putting on Superman's cape.
Correct. You're right.
You're delivering an expectation, and you're delivering on what you're committing to.
Yes.
And maybe up front you're gonna acknowledge that this task it can't be done this way.
Right.
But here's what I will do. I will do everything that it takes to get to this outcome.
Yep.
So I think there's a fuzziness up front, but if there's communication,
correct,
it becomes less fuzzy.
Oh yeah.
But I can see where someone just, we'll do that for sure, and in their mind they're saying there's no way we do that. So there's that impossibility,
Right.
and it's outside of the realm.
Well, and I will say there are loan officers who do not like confrontation
Yep.
and do not want to say what the problem is going to be for fear of losing the transaction.
Right.
And you just create a whole bunch of trouble down the road.
Yeah.
I just won't do that. I mean, sure, is it possible I miss something from time to time and then we deal with it? Yes. But as a rule, I deal with everything up front.
Yeah.
And I don't just hope it gets better.
Yeah.
So-
Well, in our role as realtors, that we have maybe an inclination, especially early on, to overpromise with no plan or no idea of how that's going to be executed.
Right.
But like you say, you want to win the affection of that client or that prospect.
Right.
But it always comes back to bite you.
Right.
And if you're not careful up front to be straightforward and honest, well, there it is, straightforward and honest. I'm saying some of the magic bullets there.
Yeah.
Trustworthiness, and that's a specific area where you can distinguish yourself from others is by just saying things that you know that you can execute, and then doing it rather than just overpromising and
Yeah.
with no plan to execute.
Yep.
So that's great stuff. I appreciate all that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned having a clear why for being in this industry.
Yeah.
So I'll have you elaborate on your understanding of what that why is and
Yeah.
how it's motivated you to achieve your goals.
Yeah. I mean, for me...
Actually, let me stop.
Okay.
Is your definition of why at all related to Simon Sinek's book of Start With Why? Or maybe it's just coincidentally?
No, I would say it's similar.
Okay.
I mean, what is your purpose behind what you're doing? And obviously making money, right? But I mean, that's not your why.
Right.
For me, it's bigger, and quite honestly, I think you can't judge what anybody's why is. Because I'll tell you, my why was I wanted my wife to stay home with our kids. I wanted to send our kids to private Christian school, which is not free, and I wanted to save for college during all of that, which required higher income than normal. And so if I tell somebody that's my why, they might judge it and go, well, I would never want to do that. Well, that's fine. That's not your why. So
That's right.
anyways, your why has to be personal to you and what really drives you. And that really drove me. That was something and my wife obviously was in agreement. That's something she wanted. That's something I wanted. We were very much in alignment. And that motivated me to work really hard to make that happen. To the point where...
To do the best you can, or to do what it took?
To do what it took,
Yeah.
because I worked... So I started out as a mortgage broker, and then for 3 years, and then I went to work with the superstar loan officer. For the previous relationship, we had a mutual person that needed help as a loan officer. And so after being a mortgage broker and being on my own for a few years, I went and I was somebody's assistant, which would be hard for most people. But this person consistently produced a lot of business, and I knew that it would be a money that would provide a baseline for where we wanted to start, for having my wife stay home with our kids. And for some people, their ego couldn't handle not being a loan officer, but my why was more important than my title. And I served her in a way that I became so valuable to her, she didn't want to work without me anymore. And when my kids were really young, I would work from 8 to 5:30, go home, have dinner with my family. My kids would be in bed by 7:30. I went back to the office till 10 or 11 at night when we were really busy. And I wasn't making the big money, but that I was driving because I knew long term if I provided that value to her, our relationship was gonna change from assistant to be a loan officer on her team, and we were gonna start being partners. And I saw that path, and so I was willing to do, honestly, what very few people would have been willing to do. Mm-hmm. We developed a great relationship, but wasn't the easiest personality to work with. Very hard driver. And many people failed at what I did, but my why is what drove me to keep pushing through that. And then, eventually we became a loan officer team, and then she retired and I took over what we built together. So without a clear why and why I was doing that, I would have never put in that work. Our relationship would have never grown, and then the opportunities beyond that would have never happened for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
That's great. That's awesome. So you also talk about being consistent and reliable. And you mark that as a critical element in your approach. So
Yes.
describe a situation where that consistency in communication, I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, the consistency of communication or service played a role in building that trust with a client or referral partner.
yeah, and what's interesting to me is just you would think us being in sales or a service delivery industry, good service would be a given. Like returning phone calls would be a given. It is not. Like following up on something you say you're going to do would be a given. It's not. I mean, it's amazing to me how doing these basic things all the time, that's just the way you operate, really stand out as, wow, Jon gives great service because Jon actually returned my phone call that day, not days later. That day he called me back. And so like with our bank partners, most U.S. bank loan officers will sit in a bank branch, and a fair amount of their business will come from referrals from the tellers and bankers. I've never sat in a bank branch. The way I've developed relationships with those bankers was I had clients that had banking needs, and I continually referred them to our banking team, like our wealth management bankers. And eventually, if you refer somebody enough business, they're going to feel bad, and they're like, I better give this person something back. Well, when they did that, the feedback they would get from the clients was, wow, this guy was awesome. Thank you for referring him to me. That was a great experience. And they heard that over and over. Whereas when they would refer to other loan officers, they'd be like, okay, your guy's not calling me back. I left him a message 3 days ago. I mean, that's embarrassing to a banker, any referral source, not a banker, any referral source to give a name out, and that person will not call your client back. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it happens way too often.
Yeah.
And so this is where consistency is like, yeah, give me that, I'll call them right away. Or, in an hour, or whatever it is. Or if I'm unable, I will let you know that. But it's not going to be days.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you deliver over and over. And probably now 30% of my business comes from referrals from the bank, and I've never sat in a bank branch. And that was simply because I first referred them business, they referred it back probably out of obligation, and then you deliver every single time. And that's just what I've done over and over and over.
Genius.
I mean, it's like, that's not difficult.
Yeah.
But yet it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not.
It reminds me of referring. We refer out contractors often to our home sellers when they're preparing their home for sale. And if you get bad feedback about any of the vendors that you referred, that reflects poorly on you.
Yeah.
So if you have a consistent pipeline of referring this particular painter or landscaper or whatever it is, and they deliver and you get good feedback, that's a great relationship. That's a great partnership.
And like callbacks from people is the most frustrating thing. Yeah. Because it's like, how hard is it to call back? Yet it seems to be difficult.
Ghosting is a big thing these days, right?
Yes.
It drives me crazy.
Yes.
So you mentioned the importance of being an excellent partner to realtors.
Yeah.
Builders.
Yeah.
You can't see it on the camera, but there's a stack of blueprints over there.
Oh, yeah. A big stack.
We sit in a building there's a building company here at JP Brooks. So provide an example of how you successfully built and maintained a strong relationship with a referral partner. Now, we talked about bankers, but how has that positively affected your business?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest time of growth for my business was like 2008 through 2010, when everything was terrible. And lenders were going out of business, and jumbo rates were 4% higher than conforming rates. And you couldn't, and some lenders weren't doing jumbo loans. U.S. Bank was a great place to be in that time because we could still do 10% down on jumbo mortgages. And the jumbo limit conforming limit wasn't 726,000. I mean, it was like 400 or 380 or whatever. It was low. And so being able to do loans over that was a big deal. And so just letting builders know we have solutions that other people don't. And quite honestly, a few of them didn't even believe that we could do what we could do. So for me, going to U.S. Bank, I was very fortunate in that we could offer things that builders needed that very few other people could do. So it's just, they had problems, we had a solution. So obviously it was just, providing solutions for challenges in the market. And that's where a lot of things started to take off for me.
So it sounds like there's a niche within your book of business that's luxury.
Yeah.
High value homes.
Yes. And that's where, when we talk about my loan volume, I mean, it's high. If you look at my transactions, it's still high, but my average loan size is larger than the average loan officers. My average loan size is probably, 600,000, where most is probably 300,000.
Okay.
So that's where, part of the volume is skewed because of the transaction sizes, and I definitely have built a niche in like new construction and upper bracket. But there's still a lot of transactions to add up, that's for sure.
And it sounds like that pattern started 08, 10.
Yes.
And it built. Because you provided solutions along the way for that niche.
Yep. So that definitely was when things started to grow for me.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you also talked about stress and wellness.
Yeah.
So managing stress through physical and mental well-being.
Yeah.
So share some specific strategies you use to channel and effectively maintain healthy work-life balance. We talked a little about your family life.
Yeah.
But that it's not limited to just family life, but it's your personal, it's your spiritual, it's your physical, your relational, and on it goes. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, two things. I'm trying to think. Probably it's been 7 years. So just working a ton, not taking care of myself, not working out. I don't have a lot of self-discipline when it comes to working out for the sake of working out. If we're playing sports, I'm good to go. But when you have 10, 12-year-old kids, your life really isn't your own for a lot of your time. So I just wasn't working out, and I was just stressed out. And I remember one day, my wife and I were talking, and I just started crying. And I'm like, I have no idea what's wrong with me. I can't stop crying. I'm like, I can't handle what's going on. And she's just like, you're not doing anything to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And
good for her.
And you need to. Like, your physical well-being is connected to your mental well-being. And she was right. And she had been working out at a personal training place. And usually men are hesitant to go, yeah, my wife's found this great place to work out and lift weights. But, I didn't have any other, ideas, because I knew on my own I wasn't going to do it. And so for 7 years, I have been working out with a personal trainer twice a week, lifting weights. And that has made a tremendous difference in my physical well-being. So yes, sometimes I'm embarrassed that people go, you've been working out with a trainer for 7 years? And they look at me, I'm like, well, just imagine if I wasn't working out for 7 years, right? It's genetics, but no, my body is definitely a healthier version of myself. Yes. That has made just body feeling strong, mind feeling strong. You just feel like you can push through more. So physically, that has been huge for me. And also, spiritually, I would wake up, and I'm sure a lot of people do, wake up in the middle of the night and you can't stop thinking about your problems. You're going through all the scenarios. This could go wrong, this can go wrong. How can I solve this? How can I solve that? But it's not very fruitful at 3 a.m. But I couldn't stop myself from doing it for a while. And I decided to start reading the Bible. And I've kind of felt like I'm not necessarily telling myself lies, but I'm not programming myself positively at that point. So I started to decide, I'm just going to read the Bible. I'm going to read truth. And if I didn't want to read it, I would do the audio version, and I would fall asleep listening to that, kind of forcing my mind to start thinking about positive things or other things, what I would consider to be truth, rather than just the lies I'm telling myself and all the things I need to worry about. So that was a decision to, and through that my faith had grown, and I just started to trust, in the Lord more rather than, obviously I still have to put in the work, but I stopped obsessing over every detail and just let it go and just, work through it the next day rather than try to solve everything at 3 a.m, because that's just wasn't a good time for me to try to solve things, but I found myself awake in the middle of the night quite often.
Yeah.
So I've been really good at that for probably, 6-7 years now.
Yeah, so your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being, you got a hold of that. You're on that journey. Any other pathways to overall wellness?
For me, those were the big ones.
Those are the big ones?
Yeah,
Okay.
for me, those were the big ones. I've always had a very good relationship with my wife, and so I feel like if that was off, that just will add another layer to the stresses of your life. But we've been good about communicating there. So, no, for me, the physical and spiritual were the things that really made a difference in my life, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So touching on that, you in your talk you talked about cultivating gratitude.
Yeah.
So you emphasize appreciating the opportunity to serve others. Wow, servant. So share a story or give an example of serving others and how that's led to a positive impact on a client experience.
Yeah, I would like to think it leads to a positive experience with most every client experience. I'm thankful for opportunities all over my life. I'm thankful for this opportunity to talk to you. Mm-hmm. It's fun. I've never done this before, and this is just this. I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this. Like when I get referrals from people, sometimes people are like, this one's not a very big one. I'm sorry. I'm like, Don't apologize. I am appreciative of any opportunity that you have for me. If there's somebody I can help, I want to help them. Mm-hmm. And I'm and they'll, this deal's tough. I'm like, it's okay. I appreciate the opportunity. That's just the language that I use with people. And I feel like, so I don't know if there's a particular instance where I feel like that led to this. I just think it's a general outlook on life. And I hope when people talk to me, they feel like I'm appreciative of the opportunity to talk to them. And I don't make them feel bad for wanting a loan, or that they've got some credit problems, or they're self-employed with 12 businesses and don't apologize. It's like, you know what? Yeah, this is going to be more challenging, but I don't know. I guess my outlook has just been, I'm thankful for all of my opportunities. I've always said, and I believe this, like, I treat everybody like this is a family member that I'm doing a loan for. Like that, I'm not going to give you different advice than I would give my brother or sister. I'm going to tell you, if you have a question, I'm going to advise you. And that's just how I go about doing things. And I hope people feel like I'm there to look out for their best interests. And I'm just thankful for the opportunities. And I'm just going to serve you. And good things are going to happen. That's just my general outlook. So I don't have a specific, this led to that. I just feel like the general attitude is welcoming, and people are more likely to want to work with somebody who's thankful for any referrals you have and any opportunities, rather than, because I know loan officers who go, well, I don't do loans that small.
Oh, wow.
I do. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You don't have to do loans that small, but I don't have that outlook. I'm thankful for the opportunities.
That's great.
So.
Wow. Yeah, so I all that you've said so far would lead me to be affirmed that this guy is successful in what he's pursuing, and it's such a delight to hear these things. So the fruit of your success has come, and you're working hard, and you have a formula that's working, and you've seen success, obviously by your bio and the numbers you've posted. So how do I ask this?
You can ask how much money I make. That might not be appropriate.
No, I'm not going to ask how much money
Okay.
you make. People can do their own math. So it's more of your perspective or your attitude towards resources.
Yeah.
And I guess to put it another way, so how have you embraced these financial rewards? So your work has paid off. It's just you've been consistently performing. So there's been fruit of that. So how do you manage that? What's your outlook and attitude towards those, I'll call them blessings, and rewards? So how would you answer that?
It's a fun question and one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
So just looking at people's finances every day, I've seen people do a lot of things that have scared me. And I've sort of determined I'm not going to do that. Like when I was early in the business, seeing the 60-something who always made over six figures, and they were doing another cash out refinance to pay off all their credit cards. Like clearly had resources, but weren't managing them in a way that, where they didn't use their credit cards to live. Seeing the people who get, have a base plus bonus. Every year you go in the hole, get your bonus, you get back to zero. Well, what happens if you don't get the bonus? Well, now you're in trouble. I just see things that people do that always made me uncomfortable. So that just seeing that just always made me a little bit more conservative. But you would think, when you have financial success and you have excess, you'd be like, party, what can we spend money on? This is amazing. You'll say, what a blessing, and I'm going to spend it all. But I don't think that's what we're called to do. And so what's been interesting for me, I'll call this has been a journey, because I've always wanted to give money, but I didn't know how much. And that was always a struggle, and it sounds like a funny struggle, but it was really always a struggle for me. And having access to people's tax returns, I could look, and I could go and you look at their Schedule A of deductions. I'm like, well, there's like 2 people a year who actually tithe. Like it was really interesting to me. I've seen people who made over 7 figures and didn't even give $1,000, right? I mean, and so in my mind, I'm like, well, people don't really even give money, so why would we even talk about tithing? And then there was one individual who went well beyond tithing. And I'm like, I need to ask them about that. And so after office hours, I said, hey, I got to ask you about your tithing, because it really caught my eye and it's really different.
Well, and you have permission. I mean, that's a relationship where you can go, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and it's...
But you say offline, that's not within the bounds of that transaction.
No, nothing to do with the transaction.
But
I have a personal question for you.
Yes, right.
Something that I've been struggling with that I think you have an answer to.
Yes.
And they were happy to provide it. And really... And so this has probably been 10 years, but I decided I'm going to start tithing. And so it was kind of like a big deal, because we didn't tithe growing up. I saw single dollar bills going into the basket at church. So it's like doing the math and giving 10%, that like blew my mind. But I decided I'm going to just trust God, and I'm going to, first 10% I get is going to God. And so that was very freeing feeling to me. And we all have stuff we want. And I felt like when I did that, I always had like a list of 20, 30 things, material things. I want this, I want this, I want this. And I felt like once I decided to start tithing, what I wanted became a little bit less important. So there were still things that I wanted, but I didn't want everything anymore. My relationship with money started to change a little bit, where, Mark, you're not first. Like, give money first, and then what's left over, work on that. Live on that. And so that was a very freeing feeling. And I know when I was deciding how much to give, I almost felt like I'm God. I'm going to decide, God, how much I'm going to give you. But it's like, no, God is providing. I'm going to be faithful and recognize that, and I'm going to give God the first 10%. So that was great. And then we had bigger years, and then I'm like, that doesn't even feel like enough, because I'm making enough money. Giving 10% didn't even feel like a sacrifice. I mean, I'm not bragging. It's just the math would say that's not even a sacrifice anymore. You don't even know the difference. So then struggling, like, how much am I going to give beyond that? And, and I came up with a percentage, and it was like, well, I don't even know if it's bad. It's 20 or 25. It's roughly that. But it's like, so I tithe first, and then I decided I was going to give 20 or 25% above what I was tithing of. I had a monthly budget, and whatever I did, whatever was extra, I would give additional money. And that was fun. That was great. Because when you have money sitting in an account, you look for ways to give money. And you look for opportunities. And it's just, that was, so in those great years, I had a lot of money to give away. And it was so much fun. And again, your relationship with money changes where it's like, it's not about you and your wants. And you realize, like, the more stuff you have, the more stuff breaks. You know, and so it's like the experiences become what's important. Giving to other people becomes important. You know, providing experiences to other people that they wouldn't have on their own. I mean, that stuff is way better than buying yourself a whatever. Because I've had convertibles, I mean, and they're fun, they're nice, but it's like it's fun to share with people. It's not that great on its own. So that's sort of been my journey with having excess resources and how I want to manage that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking there's maybe someone listening and saying, oh, sure. And you touched on it. Easy for you, you know, when the numbers grow, you know, how fun. Of course it's fun, I mean, because there's really no sacrifice. But what about those of us who might not have as many zeros in their checking account? Is it the same approach? So if hard times were to come to you and your income has decreased, will you have the same approach?
Yeah, I mean, and it's harder. I mean, because this year I'll probably make 25% of what I made 2 years ago. So there's not the same excess.
Yes, right.
So
but
the tithing hasn't changed.
Yeah, right.
I mean, as far as the excess above tithing, I mean, there's not as much excess. I'm actually using savings. We haven't stopped giving. We're still giving above tithing. But no, it's harder, but it doesn't change. And statistically speaking, people who make more money give less than people who make less money.
And you see evidence of that.
Oh, I see evidence of that. I literally have seen somebody who made $15 million who had $990 of charitable contributions. Wow. And I'm just saying, so it's an approach, it's a heart posture, but yes, common sense would say the more you have, the easier it is to give. Yeah. But the thing is, I've found that usually the more people make, the more they think they're responsible for it, so the more they're going to reward themselves. Rather than, okay, because like there was a couple years, I actually felt like it was a burden. And nobody's going to give you sympathy, but like, wow, this is a lot to steward. Like, I don't think, it's not supposed to flow to me, it's supposed to flow through me, and really trying to do that well, it was a burden to me. And one, you know, I didn't do perfectly. So yes, more money, easier to give, but the statistics would show the more money people make, the less they give as a percentage, the more they reward themselves, because I think people get caught up their own success and giving becomes less of a priority. That's what I would witnessed. I think the statistics, the research would back that up. So,
well, you and I share that foundational viewpoint of generosity and obedience in your tithing, and it's instructed in Scripture. So you and I both share that. But I hope that comes across as encouragement to others who maybe they don't know. Maybe that guy whoever that person was who had $15 million income would discover the joy in obedience first, and then the joy that can come from that.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey, and I think when you decide to not live on everything you make, I just think your relationship with money and others changes. Yeah. So,
boy, that's something that's powerful. Yeah, that's good stuff, Mark. So as we come to the end here, a couple of other things. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you some kind of geeky things about the market and what you see, what your circles inside U.S. Bank and in the industry. So put on your prognosticator hat. There's so many people offering opinions on where we're going from here. What do you see down the pipeline? Maybe 6 to 18 months down the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the predictions, rates will go down in 6 to 18 months. And that will be great because rates are now at a 21-year high, and that makes a difference. I mean, we were chatting before this, a $400,000 mortgage at 3% versus 7%. I mean, it's $1,000 a month difference. It's a real difference. So some relief in rates would be great. And I mean, the predictions are they will go down in 6 to 18 months, obviously, depending on what the Fed will continue to do with raising or lowering interest rates and outlook on inflation. That'll all impact it. I guess if I'm just giving any general advice in terms of buying a house related to mortgage rates, don't buy a house because of the interest rate. Don't not buy a house because of the interest rate. I mean, I think if you're at a place in life where you're ready to buy a house, buy the house. I mean, if you're not ready to buy the house, you have all sorts of debts hanging over you, but interest rates are low, I don't know. I would hesitate a little bit because there's things you need to take care of. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't buy or not buy because of the interest rate. I would, when it makes sense, you've been renting, it's time to buy. Mm-hmm. And we'll work with you with whatever your budget is. Maybe you don't buy as big of a house as you would have. Yeah. But I would say if the time is right, then get in the game. And we'll help you with payments and help you figure it out. But yes, the predictions are that rates will go down in 6 to 18 months. I mean, it's funny, but if we were talking about rates in the 5s, I think everybody would be thrilled. Yeah. It's just like such a...
I know.
But we all talk about, the first house I bought, the rate was 7%. Yours was probably higher.
Yep.
Granted, I know house prices have gone up, probably more relative than income. But I mean, if it makes sense and it's time to buy, I would say buy.
Yeah, and we deal constantly with this wave of negativism all around us.
Right.
And the media is the worst offender of they feed on that fear and keep delivering it.
Yeah.
And it's our job collectively, partnering with our lenders, us agents, that we need to calm that fear.
Yeah.
And look at it with sensibility and realism, and weigh it against, as you say, what is your personal circumstance? Can you afford this?
Yeah.
Don't worry about what China's doing or what the president or the Fed or whoever is doing. What is your circumstance?
Right. And, obviously people are saying, you can refinance in 12, 24 months, and you can most likely, but we don't know that for sure. So don't buy something that's going to put you in a bad position if rates don't come down either. Yeah. So you still have to be mindful and responsible, even given the rate circumstances or rate environment. But yes, likely you'll be able to refinance and improve that. But you don't make your decision and put yourself in such a tough spot right now that you're relying on that, because that's doesn't give much room for life to happen. Yeah,
and in an industry observation, it's interesting, your experience coming out of 2008 into 2010 and a little bit beyond. That was kind of the wave after the hard times. Mm-hmm. And many would say we're living in another hard time. Mm-hmm. So a positive outlook might be, let's prepare ourselves as industry professionals to be ready for that prospective wave to come again. And if we're still doing the fundamentals, as you suggest, of reaching out to our sphere, talking to people, being consistent, being present, being the professional that people can turn to even in these hard times, who are they going to turn to? Right. The guy that's fleeting and he's out of business? No. So...
Yeah, and let people know we're here. I mean, I think I just read a statistic that there's 43% less loan officers today than in 2021.
43%.
Yeah, and more people will be quitting.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Hard times.
And I'm guessing there's many realtors who have exited as well.
Yeah, there's an equivalent number or percentage for sure in our field. Yeah, so if we can hang in there.
Yes.
Just be the voice of calm as we move forward and continue with the fundamentals. So, well, Mark, I want to finish with, I'm borrowing a term used from one of my favorite podcasters. He calls it the lightning round.
Oh, wow.
And if you're up for this task, this challenge, I offer a question or a statement, and you give just a real quick 1 to 2 sentence response.
Okay, let's give it a shot.
And you sound brave, all right?
Let's see how good the questions are.
So here we go.
Over there. This must have gone poorly in the past.
No. Well, maybe no.
Let's do it.
So share one book that profoundly impacted your life or career.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Interesting.
And that was like the 1930s.
Yeah, right.
What's crazy is I gave that book to my son a couple of years ago. He's a freshman or sophomore in college. He read that. He's like, I can't believe how true this stuff is. I mean, it really, So
back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basic stuff.
That's me. That's basic. That's true. So that's your answer.
Outstanding. Great. Can you name a person who has had a tremendous impact on you as a leader?
Well, I will say probably in my professional career, it would be the person I used to work with. Her name is Jody.
Sure.
I mean, I learned a tremendous amount from her. In terms of being present with clients, getting the job done, there's just so much I learned from her, and I'd say professionally, my old mentor and partner, Jody Ennin.
All right. Shout out to Jody. Can you tell us just one? I know you gave us 3 earlier.
Okay,
one key trait you believe every successful loan officer should possess.
One.
Well, by the way, do you prefer being called a loan officer or an originator? Doesn't matter?
Yeah, it's all the same to me.
Okay. All right.
I would say consistency, but that could mean many things in terms of doing your job well, reaching out to people consistently. But I think consistency trumps any great idea that's never implemented. So consistency is a huge thing.
Amen. We covered that. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't cash out that 401k to pay off the car.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Oh, man.
And don't buy a new car because you can't afford to fix the air conditioning. Same problem.
Okay. We might have more examples. Oh, man. That's great. Describe your world in 5 years.
It will be more high tech. So technology, automated gathering of information and analysis of information will continue to be bigger and bigger. But I still think the loan officer, the consultation part is going to continue to be important because of how the magnitude of the decision. But I think it will become more and more automated. You know, right now we do hybrid closings where you e-sign most docs. I mean, everything is going to be electronic signatures. It's going to, a lot of things are going to be simple, a lot more automated. So I think there will continue to be less loan officers, but I think there's always going to be a need for professionals who know what they're doing.
So, side question to that, does that include AI in some regard?
I don't know, like, I just was hearing our president talk, and I think they think AI will be involved in some way, but they don't know how it's going to do it yet.
It's too early.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's not affecting in some fashion, but it remains to be seen. So last one, what hobby or pastime do you enjoy when you're not working?
Cooking.
Cooking.
Yeah, I have a big green egg.
Yes, you do.
Like to smoke meat on, so... as I mentioned, my son he's living in the house with 4 other guys, and they're cooking for themselves. So I told him, I'll make little cooking how-to videos for you to give you ideas on what to make on a weekly basis, and then you can watch the video and do it. So
Genius.
I just think that stuff's fun and a way for us to stay connected.
That's awesome. I've had the pleasure of enjoying some of your green egg creations, so that's
yes, you
fantastic.
Have. Yeah,
and you are very generous with your smoking.
Oh yeah, you usually make. Yeah, you want to share the food. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't like to eat by myself.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you'll make
a lot.
Large batches, way more than you could consume in your household, and then you share that.
Give it away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that generous spirit.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
amen. Well, Mark, thank you.
That's awesome.
It's been a delight. So thank you for watching. I'm always on the lookout for those who have compelling and interesting stories to share. And so thanks for watching.